what I do for a living is I manage this CIS, and what the CIS breaks down to is I'm looking at macro trends that are affecting mostly digital, but I'm kind of going outside of digital just because outside of digital is kind of coming into digital. But things that are causing macro business change, so adoption of anything as a service in both new business models from IoT and 5G, a lot of digital transformation stories. So when people go through this process of digital transformation, that's their opportunity to like add these capabilities that allows them to monetize things a whole lot easier. But there's a lot of business model innovation going out there. There's a lot of, if you look at the news, there's a whole lot of older companies like Caterpillar and stuff going into subscriptions and trying out things just because they can. It's easy. And one of my favorite people is Peter Drucker. He said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And that's kind of what this presentation's about, is I'm a data nerd. That's why I'm up here with glasses on still, and I should have taken these off already. But I think it's just really important to measure things. And so what I do with that is I understand how these affect monetization systems. So the first bullet here we're going to talk about today is consumption is maturing outside of IaaS and telecom, where primary consumption models were the thing. But first you have to understand usage. And I cover price optimization solutions. There's a lot of good news around there, but that's a whole nother presentation. And a lot of companies are moving from on-premise to SaaS. No surprise, but it's a long journey and it's hard for a lot of companies to get over. So there's a lot of moving parts when you do that. And so what I've created is a monetization ecosystem. So over here on the left, we have the end customer. They might do business through a partner, direct, or through omnichannel, and then they'll go through some kind of opportunity capture product. But the things in green are the areas where I take care of, the monetization management. Some of these things are taken care of by different ERP systems. There's a box in there that talks about subscription management functions. So there's subscription management products that do everything in those boxes plus some. But the two that we're going to be covering the most today is going to be on the bottom, what I call usage intelligence. And this can, if you're in the telco area, this is old news, doing mediation. But it's new news if you're tracking APIs, which that's not too new. But data as a service and certainly software, that's getting brighter. And then provisioning, you got old school entitlement and enforcement, but you've also got the beginning of the supply chain when you're talking about other kinds of business models. So one of the things that I am lucky enough to leverage is IDC's huge tracker system. So every quarter we go out to thousands of companies and we ask them how much they made in all the products that we track. So in this case, we're talking about the software tracker. And we have software trackers broken down by 3 primary markets, I think like 20 different secondary markets, and then 85 functional markets. But when we take all that data up and just look at it on the aggregate for software, we get to see a nice picture. And that picture's on the right. And the big numbers that you can see, the 46 and 54, are all forecasted at 2023. So public cloud services is what we call anything multi-tenant. It's a multi-tenant application. So it could be a PaaS, could be SaaS. IaaS isn't in this view, but it's just those PaaS and SaaS products. And so you can see that there's a big trend going on that is probably no surprise. It's just quantifying it might be a surprise. And the on-premise products are still growing, but they're growing at 2% in this area. And if we look at public cloud services, they're growing at 19%. And if we take a look at those individual companies that are reporting their stuff, 45% are offering both. They're offering an on-prem product and a SaaS product. So there's a lot of hybrid, another use of hybrid in our language here. But there's a lot of hybrid companies out there that are managing both business models. And if we take a look at this data in a slightly different way, once a year I do a forecast, and I take that same data for the software tracker, and then I look underneath it, the metadata for it. And what I'm doing is doing a forecast of how much is sold via license, maintenance, and subscription. You're going to get these slides afterwards. So this is like the big, the bar chart picture. But the summary is the whole software market's growing at 8.2%. But if we break that down and look at the components, license is shrinking at negative 2.8. Maintenance is still growing at 2.1, and a lot of companies that have license is mission critical, so they're compelled to buy maintenance. But subscription is growing at 17.5%. And that's not just from SaaS that we saw before, because the last slide just showed PaaS and SaaS, and that is all based on a subscription business model. But what we're seeing is a lot more on-prem companies moving over to the subscription model and selling their products in a combined package. Adobe's the old one that did it really well when they launched their Creative Suite, and they basically have a suite of products that have on-prem products that are all timed, they all have entitlement on there, so they'll be alive for however long you bought them for. So a year or 2 years or 3 years. But Microsoft's the one that's really moving it now, because they're earnestly now. Last year they got their they basically came out with a new entitlement process and a new EULA, and they've rolled that out across the world through their resellers, and they're getting very aggressive with moving their old Office licenses over to Office 365. And so that's starting to move the needle in a major way for this point of view. And the takeaway from this is in 2021, that's the year we expect to go over 50% subscription revenue out of all the software. So even though we've been talking about it for a really long time, even SaaS, it's not even 50% yet. Us in the industry, we've been hearing this for a really long time, but still, we're just about to hit the 51% area in 2021. So this is another view. We're traveling down the rabbit hole, and we're getting rid of what we've done in this view is we got rid of PaaS and we've got rid of system software, and we're just looking at applications. In the applications area, we break them down by 7 different secondary markets. And you can see the titles, those all represent things, so collaborative applications, CRM, and same kind of color coding. And you can see that different, specific secondary markets have moved a lot faster than others. And when we started adopting cloud, one of the biggest reasons for adopting was to have collaboration outside their walls. So we could just be able to do email or Slack or whatever else across company lines pretty easily. And so this one transferred really quickly just because of the use of cloud is just so good for that type of application. And you can see CRM's moved a lot, ERP has moved a lot, but there's a few on the other side that haven't really moved that much. And the one all the way over is engineering applications, and they are expected to be 6% by 2023. So each one of these has their own story on why they're moving as slow as they are. That's a document that I've created and just recently updated in talking for another subject. But the point of this is that the hybrid deployment model will be around for many years. So it's not going to happen all tomorrow. You got a lot of years left. We see a lot of vendors basically moving over to the subscription business model because they want to start adopting new SaaS type features either around as an adjacent offering or in their product, because a lot of the new whiz-bang cool things like machine learning and AI can't be done on-prem. They usually are done up on the cloud. So to meld this, they're starting to blend this thing because there's a lot of companies that aren't ready to move to the cloud. And they may not be ready to even have a connected product in sometimes. But what we want you to do is basically start thinking about adopting a subscription business model, get on that platform, start offering your products that way, so you can prepare to sell your, any kind of SaaS enhancements and versions to your company, your customers in an integrated way. And you want to blur the lines between on-prem and SaaS. And the most thing, since we've been talking about usage, and there's a lot more in this document, is to leverage customer data or use the customer usage data to drive those decisions. And I used to be a product manager for a really big product at Veritas Software, Net Backup and Data Lifecycle Manager. And we had telemetry built into our product. And it was really, really thin. We knew when the thing was installed, if it was successful, we knew when operations were done. But we were so blind to know that this feature that we just spent 6 months developing, and we put it in, who's using it? Oh, we have our sales engineering teams actually come back to us and tell us, how much they like it or not. But that's a few data points. What about the masses? How do we know? And we didn't know. We were always flying blind in a big way. And yeah, the point that was made earlier about people opting in to offering their usage data, that was a problem, especially back then. And then we flipped it around and made it an opt-out, and so that got us more. And then, I left that company. But what I'm talking with other companies, and they're basically writing into their EULAs that you get this, and then they're trying to offer incentives to tell people, well, you're going to get this because we're collecting that. You're going to get a better product. So it is a sales job to tell them what you're going to do with the data, or it's a legal job of making it opt out. I don't know how that flies in GDPR land now, but that's what we see. So how many people are collecting usage data now? I think we had a little show of hands before. So we got roughly half, 3/4. Okay, all right. We'll use that for later. So the rest of this presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to do like a best practice, and then we're going to have a discussion amongst the tables. And so the first best practice that we're going to talk with is just understanding your customers at scale. And I know we talked a little bit about this during Jam's talk, but we're going to go down the rabbit hole just a little bit. So collecting product usage data. So that featured level data is by customer ID, goes across all deployment types, so you have that single view of the customer, no matter if they're on IoT or SaaS or on-prem. And obviously you want to ask the customer for permission to get that information, and you want to collect the stuff sooner than later, because when you start collecting it, that's when your data starts getting rich. You can't say you're going to do it and get historicals out of it. So sooner than later is the really magic there. And then you can add that to entitlement data. So what we're going to do is basically make an equation here and add that to the product and service history. When did that customer start as a trial customer and then they became a real customer? That's information that you want to know. Any kind of changes in what they've done, upsell, cross-sell, and basically moving down even. And understanding, of course, this data from a single point of view. And then the real magic starts happening when you layer in outside data. And this could be internal to your business, but outside the product area. And then getting information from support and success areas from Zendesk and whatever, or your customer data, and finding out what the buying and renewal frequency, what the customer churn is. And then externally, being able to pull in an S&P data set that might say what your customer sizes are. And so you can understand, okay, well, these are large customers, these are small customers, or where they're at from a location point of view, and especially from an industry point of view. We see a lot of success in the IDC world for customers that are for vendors that make verticalized products, because almost every company that we talk to likes it when you have a sales team that comes and they go, I know your business. And I know the best practices for your business because we've talked to you guys already. And I know how to hook you up, and I know how to make this product really sing for you. So understanding who uses your features by industry is one of these nice things. And adding all this up, you get data-driven feature success, or you can chop off features that are not used anymore because it costs money to keep those things going. Some of them even have a bunch of technical debt associated with it that, oh, we can just cancel the debt and remove the feature, and hopefully, customers will be okay with it for the few that are left. You can forecast your scalability needs. So if you got your own data center or you're looking at ramping up, it gives you an idea of that. In addition to what you're getting from those services. You can identify super users to do testimonials with this. You can journey map them as they go through their products so you can understand their workflow. And you can understand your value metrics. And that's really a big part of this talk. And an example, a real simple example, is I'm tracking the success or the usage of 10 features. And so I've used S&P data, or Standard & Poor's data, to basically know what size the customers are. So I've segmented that into SMB and enterprise. So I have an idea. And I can kind of see, well, there's a trend, so that's cool. But what if I were to group them and say, okay, well, these are SMB preferred, and these are enterprise preferred, and these are common. So if I want to go to a subscription model and have tiers, well, I've got a nice start here where I can kind of move things into tiers and know that I'm going to really make happy certain types of customers because I've got the features that they want in the edition that they want. And I don't have a whole lot of enterprise features in my SMB one that jacks up the price. Maybe I can keep it lower. So it's a data-driven perspective. So now I want to do discussion. So what the idea is to do is 4 minutes around your table, have a discussion to discuss how would your company benefit from better insights from customer usage data. And if you guys are really super secret and you've got, what at the end of 4 minutes, I want to ask you, what your table's idea was. And if some of you guys are really, you got a super secret idea, well, if you'll humor me, you can go clandestine and nobody will know who you are because, you've got this on. So yes, I brought props. And if you want to get all nerdy, well then I've got this for you and you can do this. And if you've got a really sexy idea, well then I've got this one. So if you'll play with me, great. But have at it, and I'm going to start the clock. And guys, we're going to go back to one conversation here.
Really concentrated on the course.
So we had a good discussion on this topic. To answer the question specifically, and I'm from NetApp, so I can speak for NetApp, our vision is to predict what the next step would be for the customer, if not the partner. So the insights would educate us, better position ourselves, our sales teams, to not only have a low sales touch model. So I don't want customers to be like, oh God, I got to talk to a sales guy. I want direct enablement with .com, and I'm looking at the sales guy as a follow-up conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I'll buy you a beer. How'd you like my product? Because that person knows the insight on how the usage has been from a try-buy journey towards a renewal, if not which business models, et cetera, we can predict in due time where does the journey of that customer reside and what's the best foot forward, not just from a product, but from the whole relationship management.
Okay.
So that's what insight means for us.
You're doing that now?
We're building that right now, yes. And we're looking at how do we go, and again, in talking with Gemalto, right? There's a discovery session we've got formally kicked off, I would say. There are deep dives, if not discussions within IT, the business side, the BU perspective, which is if my customer logs in on a portal from any engagement, try, buy, what have you, I want the experience to be entitlement management from day one of that login. Mm-hmm. So as you log in, I know exactly who you are. I know which trials you've got, active, deactivated, how many days in that. I want to be able to give you a promotional offer before the trial ends. Yeah. Right? And that should be automated. Yeah. It should not be like, hey, go back and do this, right. Debook, rebook, disruption. It's all seamless. It's Netflix for NetApp, which is my vision, right? We're trying to get to that point.
And are you going to start, is this a company-wide thing, or are you going to focus on products?
So it starts with the product. It starts with the product because in the end, you're selling products and services, right? Products go to a certain extent, right? Features, what have you. We can live without releasing new features for up to 18 months. We can. It's the service offering which we want to enable, right? And so where does that begin? It's the licensing and the entitlement journey which we're looking at. So the vision begins from educating our C staff on what the trends are, what the changes are, some of the slides which you showed us, high value to us, right? And so to position ourselves as we want to make these changes in the company for the next decade, and we're 27 years in existence, that's where the positioning comes in. And that's where we are taking a BU-led approach on what does this mean for our BU portfolio? How does it look at a global offering when we go from the Americas, LATAM, what have you, right? EMEA, APAC, how does it change the whole ballgame for different entities? And we've learned so many things from EMEA. It's leading in so many different directions for specific products that America is utilizing less products compared to EMEA. The adoption is higher in certain products. So that gives us better insights. Again, data-driven decisions for us.
Great. Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you.
Your table? Got a good idea? Please turn on your mic.
I typically don't need that, but
We're recording it.
yeah.
It's for evidence.
I'm coming from a different perspective here. So I'm part of the service organization in Cisco, and we collect a lot of data from our customers. And one of our key findings is everyone's got an ego. And
Really?
the typical ego is, how do I perform against my peers, the industry that I'm part of? And when you can take that data and turn into some kind of benchmarking and show the customer what the value they will get back, and either they can go home and be really nervous because they're really, really on the left side of that scale, or they can go home and be a hero in their own organization and show, hey, I'm on this right side. And that helps us to take that data and also share with our developers that actually build the software in the back end.
You use gamifying?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a company called O-Power that I don't know who bought them, but basically they're the ones that summarize all the data at an electrical power plant on who all the customers are using. And then when you get your bill, you can see that you're using this much, and your neighborhood's using this much, and your town's using this much. And it gives you an idea of, hey, I'm using too much, or I'm looking good. So that type of competition is good for people because it works on a lot of us. So good idea. How about this table? Anybody want to share? Anybody need glasses? I didn't bring these for nothing, did I? I should have done this after wine. That's really what my timing is everything.
Is that on? Okay. I'll just throw one quick one in here, which is you got a portfolio of features. Some of those features were probably built for a single customer, and nobody uses that feature, including the customer who they were built for to close that deal. And you've got $1 million of R&D spend, just to put it in a round number. And if you can identify the 15% of the features that actually nobody's using and reallocate that $150 million to the features that are being used. And I'll throw in one other thought, which is you've got some features that are being used by very few people. Some of them are being used by a couple customers who represent disproportionate revenue for your company, and understanding which are those lowly used features that are actually critical to your business, and which of those lowly used features are ones that you can reduce investment or de-invest in a resource-constrained environment is critical.
Yes, it is. Good point. Very good point. Thank you. This table?
Hello.
Hey.
I think right now we're at a point that, with Gemalto especially, with the deployed and not deployed endpoints that we sell today are key factors. Most of our revenue, a lot of our revenue is based on expansions. And to expand, you have to understand what they're using and what they're not using. And the power, I think, what Gemalto has given us at this point is giving us an idea of what's been deployed and what's not deployed, and finding out as time goes by, a certain duration, why customers aren't using certain products. And that gives our sales an insight of overutilization. Some customers are using everything, and those are opportunities for expansion. And then the one customers that aren't using anything that they purchased, and finding out if there's could be something in the feature they don't like, or sometimes it's even the customer experience themselves of how things were deployed. Do they even understand the product they even purchased? So it brings up it's a triangulation of a lot of things, but it's really helped. Yeah.
Good, thank
Yeah.
you. You guys want? Yep.
Hey, so we happen to be a table of our company. I don't know what we did, but hi, everyone. So we had a great internal discussion about ways that we could improve our own processes. We've got a couple of young products. We're also in the security space, so we understand the feeling of we need to protect our customers. They're very sensitive to the fact of what they're sharing with us might be fairly proprietary. So in the fact that we are interested in protecting their data, we also do want to collect the analytics. What do you do to interpret those is kind of the stopping point for us, similar to a lot of you guys. Market segmentation, going into the presentation, we're looking at it as where do they stop, which market is stopping at which point. If they're downloading some of our software, we have a SaaS delivery where they can get access to a lot of our encryption technologies. Where is it that they're stopping? Do we have 200 people that are downloading this thing, or is it 100 people and they're sending it to somebody else who's now downloading that, or do we lose them at that point? So trying to analyze where exactly we are losing customers, where's the attrition and the churn, versus where are we going to be able to grow and evolve the products in order to avoid that. That's kind of where we started identifying where we need to improve some of our processes and analytics. And it's pretty much going over what you went over and seeing how it applies.
Cool. All right, thank you. And Jan, what do you guys got in the back?
The table of two. So based on the data of attendance in our table, I will make some assumption. No, the conversation we have had has been a bit more from a monetization standpoint, where we are looking at usage data as a way to monetize and provide a bit more flexibility in how our customers can actually purchase our product. I'm with Informatica, and we do software around data management. And it's not so much about the volume of data, but the insight that the solution actually provides. And we are getting in some space where being able to forecast what the actual usage in terms of consumption, in terms of amount of processing that will take place becomes a very more difficult step for customers to forecast, so they know how much they should buy for on a subscription upfront. And so the concept that we're exploring is really around how can we get information from the product itself that could provide the ability for the customer to see where they are at based on what they acquire in terms of a license or a package of usage, and still have the flexibility to go over it without having to buy into the next level up, or just for us to use from a sales perspective as an indicator of potential upsell. And whether you monetize it or not, whether you give them 10% fudge and say, oh, by the way, we noticed, why don't you upgrade to the next band? Or have that kind of information and insight to be able to articulate and position our pricing and our packaging a bit more flexibly for this product, especially as the model will vary based on the industry, based on the type of data, based on the type of project a given customer might actually use the product for.
Well, thanks, Jan. All right, time check. I lost my clock. How much time do we have? How much time do I have? 0 time. Okay. All right. 0 time. And nobody used, God, I don't know. All right, so you're going to get the rest of this, but let me just advance. So I've got two more of these, which unfortunately, they're fun. This is the most important one to me. It's like, how do you monetize this data and turn it into maybe a new business model that basically addresses, and I can kind of keep on going here. I wanted to cover these 2 trends. So we did a big survey once a year, and this is SaaS Path. It's 2019. Before you big takeaway on this, take a look at the X. So these guys are really close together, and we ask people on a 1 to 10 scale, what are they, when considering a SaaS application purchase, how important are each of the following? So this is the first time the consumption-based was actually longer than the subscription. And just keep an eye on the X because they're really tight. But if I show the whole scale, it looks like there's no difference. So we got this insight, and then we've got another insight from the same survey. And what I did is I asked people, which of these statements apply to your company when regarding consumption pricing? Well, people want to do consumption pricing, but they don't have the data to do it. So they need help with setting the right amount of consumption pricing. And the second one was, we have a billing solution, but it's inadequate to our future needs. And we plan to offer consumption pricing within the next 2 years. So the top three are basically, yeah, we want to do it, we just need some help. So one of the ways of getting help is to basically use usage tracking. And what you don't want to do in a product, or what you don't want to do to your customers, is basically surprise them. They want predictability, just like you want predictability in your revenues. So this is an example of we've got a subscription base for $2,000 a month, and then we've got some usage for a feature that in 3 months the customer's not really happy with you because they get a big unplanned bill. So what you could do with the usage data is like any good cell phone company, which I don't know how many are there, but they'll send you a message and say, hey, you're halfway through your data plan, or you're halfway through your usage, or you're above the mean, or however you want to communicate that to them. So you can do that to them, but you can also go, hey, maybe we need to change the amount that we add or include in our subscription. Maybe we need to change that so other customers aren't affected by big changes. So it's another thing that you can do with usage data when you're modeling your prospective consumption pricing models, is to take some of this data and then do some what ifs and figure it out. So we won't do this, but this is a fun one. So do this at home. Talk to your cat. And finally, so the last bit of it is, strongly consider you doing it now, because again, if you don't start collecting it, you're not going to get insights from it for a year. Look for value metrics. Take this data, integrate it with other types of firmographic data, so you get an idea of who and where they are. So you can make better products for your customers on a virtual basis. You don't have to talk to each one of them. We're going to go around the tables here. And I want to start with this one this time and do something completely different. All right? Yeah? Yeah.
First. Oh, okay.
Michael.
Well, hi.
What type of insight did you have for this?
We had fantastic insights. Thank you. We are. Am I close enough?
Yeah. We have a booming voice to disturb.
It is booming.
I'm booming now.
There you go.
So we are a company that's created specific custom types of encryption products, and that can have a long sales cycle, especially if you're making a big thing and you're chasing something down for 6 months and saying this has a big price tag as well. So pay-as-you-go, we found, is one way to bridge the consumer market with the enterprise market. It's just less skin in the game. So if you put up, let's say, $20, you use it a little bit, it's also a good way to test our business model. How do you know it's working? How do you know they like it? And if they are liking it and they use it a lot, they may be incentivized to roll on to something more like a recurring revenue or subscription basis. And so we kind of borrowed that idea from the Twilio model, which looks really effective, which is just take a micro penny off some set amount. You put up some money, it gets consumed down to a threshold, and reboot it. We also see that as a way to reduce attrition. So if you have a subscription-based model, in the business model, we look at it as maybe we'll keep 80% of the customers month on month while we're trying to grow that customer base. If there's already money on the table in a pay-go model, they're less likely to drop off because, why not? They may come back to it later. Yeah. So those are some of the reasons we think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you go up to Amazon, Amazon has a B2B marketplace for analytics, so they have AI, and then a big one for IoT. And a lot of the IoT vendors, the services for either device management or analytics, or there's a bunch of different pieces to IoT. But they all have individual prices, and a lot of them are consumption-based. So they have like a minimum, and then on top of that, they have a per a per inference or some kind of per charge on it. So it's all over. If you can go, if you want to see it in action, go to Amazon Marketplace. So this table, what you got?
So we were talking.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. So in our case, we are an on-prem company, but we'd like to move to a consumption model. And the biggest challenge is how do we know what they're using, especially because many of them, we believe, are air-gapped and that we don't get access to that data.
That's tough.
So one of the things that we were thinking about is saying that, because we don't have the consumption model yet, we said, if you want consumption pricing, which we think will be beneficial to customers in the long run,
You got to share.
then you must give us, you must have a call home ability. So that's one way of us getting our foot in the door from that perspective. But I think the biggest challenge with any kind of pay-as-you-go model or any variances is companies that do budgeting for a year and they expect to say, I want to spend X amount of money. But if their usage is going up and down, it becomes a real problem because we don't have it in the budget.
Yeah.
But at that point, we, as a critical component, can't say we're cutting you off. And that's something that we're struggling. I don't have an answer. So if anyone else has an opinion on that, I'd love to hear.
Okay.
I have an opinion. There are certainly companies who have played with the idea of using a usage-based model for the entry-level usage to lower the entry-level costs, and then to put a cap on what the usage pricing or usage charges can go to. Now, that requires a little bit, as Dave was saying, sophistication in your front-end systems, right? But that's one approach you can take to kind of combining low entry costs with an understanding of what your maximum charge might be, so it's within your budget and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's several subscription management products that'll do just that.
Right,
And
but-
monetize that with lots of flexibility.
Exactly, but you have to go install one of those subscription management products. Right.
Yeah. Okay. How are you guys doing? Anything? Push the red button. There you go.
Yeah, so we had the benefit of being able to talk to a customer and ask them, well, how would you benefit from a consumption model? And one of the things that
Okay.
we wrestled with
Enough.
was, does measuring consumption actually sort of deter somebody from fully realizing all of your product as much as they could, right? And for example, if you were charged from Spotify and listening per minute, would you actually listen less? So there's that risk of a consumption business model actually backfiring where it maybe deters proper usage, and the trick of associating consumption with value. For me, the interesting thing about consumption is not necessarily to think of it as a pricing model, but even just as a value metric. So, your pricing can be a subscription base or tied to some revenue or value that makes sense to your customer. But consumption can be a way to understand, am I tying it to am I measuring the right level of value being generated, so that we can focus on those kind of insights to improve the product. So consumption more as an internal value metric than a business model. I think as a product person, that's where I would look to first. Still really wrestling with how consumption can really turn into a business growth driver, although I love that concept of entering new markets over on the first table with using that as a way to approach
Trying it out.
B2C. And yeah, that's I hadn't sort of thought about that.
And then you could, if you are tracking it, you can tell people. So again, a good cell phone company will tell you your data plan, you're halfway through it. And that'll change your behavior, absolutely.
But there's a reason there's not a lot of good cell phone companies.
So, there's a pro and a con to everything. It's cheaper, but it comes comes with a roof over the head.
Right.
You can go through the roof, but it's going to cost you.
I'd just like to make a comment about, I think there's various ways usage-based models can be used. And the way Amazon uses it works for Amazon because it's tightly coupled with the value proposition, which is you can go and experiment for a while.
Right.
And there is actually variable usage. If you've got something that's either high usage or fixed usage, then a usage-based model isn't going to make a lot of sense from a value proposition alignment. So you have to think about whether you're doing something as a pricing action to lower the entry costs initially, or you're doing something to align with the value proposition that you're offering. Those are the kinds of considerations you have to think about.
Yeah. Zuora is a subscription management company, and they put it into their contracts to collect usage data from people. And what they do are from their customers. And what they've done is they've created a benchmark. So every year they come out with a benchmark, and now they're putting it out more quarterly or semi-annually. And they'll say what industries are, how some industries are doing better on the consumption. And if they did consumption, what's the percent of their subscription that's the happy one? So they called it the Goldilocks amount. And they found out that 28% was the magic one. So if you're going to charge for consumption, consumption should be on average 28% of your subscription. Don't go 50%, don't go 100%. So don't rock their world on a monthly or quarterly basis, but have it at 28%. So
But that's where I think you have to differentiate between using a new revenue model as a financing option as opposed to using a revenue model as an alignment with a value proposition. I think that 28% comes from the thinking about this is a different way to finance the purchase of something, so it has to be at a certain level so the ROI makes sense and the cost benefit makes sense over time. That's a different goal than aligning with a truly elastic value proposition or something like that.
yeah, and that 28% is aggregate, so it's going to change with different types of,
Right.
of industries and different types of products. So
Right.
you need to go down that rabbit hole to really understand what's right for you.
Right.
Back here, what you guys got? Want to play? If it, it's not it's not red. Testing.
Loud enough.
Or use that one. Yeah. Use the neighbor.
All right. Slight operator error here. One of the things we discussed was the fact that in a B2B environment, customers have budgets, and similar to what was brought in at the table. And one of the things we've done in different ways is help customers create like a pool of money. And they would have a subscription, they'd have a base charge, but they're actually adding to that pool of money and drawing from that, whether it's money or credits or tokens or however. And we're helping customers really track, so it's really measuring what they're actually using and then taking from that pool versus dealing with the, I don't have budget for the next month and now I don't know what to do.
Like a prepaid model.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you, because the more I think about this, what I hear from customers when it comes to software is that I don't get questions on going to a consumption model on software, but to go to enterprise agreements. That's a big shift I see right now. When it comes to infrastructure and capital expenses, that's where customers really asking for a consumption model. Any thoughts on that? Or am I the only one seeing that? I mean, I don't see an ask from customers to go to consumption model for software. That's my point.
Yeah, it's not a universal thing. Not everybody wants to go. So it all is segmented. This data gets segmented down to somebody wants it more than others.
Yeah, what I've seen in that is large customers, really large customers are looking for the enterprise model because they're multinational and they want to have a single place. But the small and medium customers, they really are looking
Budget
for
focus.
more. They're, I'm going to get value for it. I want to pay for that.
Yeah, I think, in addition to what Noopa said, the other benefit of ELA is you get this fixed known cost for 3 years. And I think they like that aspect. I think, to be honest, in Cisco's case, they're trying to put products on subscription models that are not offering a subscription experience. And that's why they're struggling with it. And Cisco is rotating to ELAs because it gives Cisco an advantage, which is locking in a customer and locking out the competition and stuff like that. So it has other benefits. It has benefits for Cisco as well as benefits for the customer, so it's a win-win situation.
And that's used in like Microsoft and Oracle and SAP where they have cloud credits where you buy stuff and then they'll give you credits to either go try another product or use more of what you own. So they're trying to get people to like try other cloud products and send them.
What's your definition of a subscription experience?
So I think, Jam kind of touched it in a kind of a soundbite he threw out and didn't kind of dwell on it so much. But to me, the real shift, we talk about going from perpetual to subscription, and now I'm stealing from my own presentation, of course. But we're really talking about going from product to service. And to me, a subscription experience is when you're delivering the ongoing value through the period of the subscription, which is something that Jam touched upon. If you're not doing that, then it's just a different way of financing the transaction. You're providing a lower upfront cost, and you're trying to find that magical 28% or whatever it is that's going to make the customer happy, that they're going to be better off over 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or whatever horizon they want to look at. But if you really want to, make the strong shift to subscription, you're really making a shift to service and providing a different value chain, a different value proposition, and providing that ongoing value through the term of subscription.
I mean, it's reflected in the pricing, right? Most people do your 3-year subscription is your perpetual license of automatically.
Right.
That's really the root of it, right?
Or worse than that, if your company leadership wants to incentivize the customers to go to subscription, they'll even lower it, and so you're leaving money on the table, Right.
It's not a value-based pricing.
Right.
Yeah. And then you have commissions, and that mixes everything. Anybody else here?
Yeah, so at our table, we have a couple of people that are hardware and software-based kind of services. So for that kind of model, it's a little bit difficult to kind of go into consumption-based. But like this gentleman here from A10, they're trying to, like load balancing, they're trying to give you a certain amount of bandwidth for different kind of things, right? Our company basically sell to carriers, right, like AT&T, Verizon, things like that. So we also sell to some of the newer tier carriers. So one interesting story that we heard is that some of the newer guys, instead of start you off on the low side, they'll give you like free trial for 3 months and pump you up with like 1 gig of bandwidth, right? After 3 months, they drop you down to like 10 meg. So all of a sudden, you got so addicted to that 1 gig that you want to pay that, that price, right? So it's one of those things that instead of, consumption-based, they're really trying to train you to use more bandwidth. Whereas in the old days, like in the cell phone environment where you're paid by minutes, right? So you're so conscious about not using as much your cell phone services, right? So you're trained to be frugal. But in this model, they're training you to be, high consumption.
Especially at the beginning.
Yeah, so
all you can eat.
So that's a really new model that really works. We see some of the newer players come in, and they just beat out Verizon and drive the Comcast out of town because of what they did, right? Whereas everybody else is about, $50 is going to be 40 meg. If you want 1 gig, it's going to be $200. But these guys come in, give you 3 months of free, whatever, for 1 gig. You get so addicted to it that you'll just pay whatever they want, right? So. Yeah.
This is a really important point, George, and we see this in the software world as well, where, really the goal is to drive the adoption of software. So one of the dynamics within ELA is, there's an assumption about how much the customer will use over a period, but you're really saying have unlimited usage. So the next time you renew the ELA, the usage level is going to be higher because you gave the customer unlimited usage for those first 3 years. And even in, say, the old Oracle model, which everybody hates and hated Oracle for, the old audit model, there was kind of a permission to use as much as you want, and then we'll come in later and we'll audit you and we'll make a lot of money. So I think the point that George is making about, encouraging the use of bandwidth, we've also seen these approaches to encouraging the use of software as well, and that's ultimately what you want to do. And that's, why you want to have these low entry level costs, drive the adoption, and then you can worry about, how do you monetize lots of usage later kind of thing, You
got the customers.
Yeah.
It'll work. Acquisition strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have. That's right,
This table, last one.
For our business, it's I think the benefit's obvious, a little more, most because of our customers. We sell to a lot of small businesses. We're in the print industry. We sell print software, and that market is heavily seasonal. They're doing a lot of end of year, early spring kind of business. And so one of their challenges as companies is they're over-investing. In order to make it through those busy seasons, they're spending a lot of money on hardware, software to make sure they have capacity, but they got people they're hiring, firing, all those things. And so this could give them an opportunity to invest at the right level for most of the year, and then give them an ability to scale up from that point.
Good point.
The concern for us is right now we're kind of happy that they're over-investing, and so this would be a change. Our business would become more seasonal.
Yeah, and impact you.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that's all. Thank you very much again. So let's do wine. Let's do wine tasting. All right.